या अली मदद टू एवरीबडी जो लाइन पर मौजूद हैं सबको मेरी तरफ से या अली मदद कबूल हो। आज हम जो टॉपिक कर रहे हैं दिस इज द मीनिंग एंड विजडम ऑफ गिरिया हुजारी। I chose this topic because Girya Huzari is a very essential practice of our tariqa of Islam, and all the prophets in fact have done Girya Huzari, and Quran praises their melting supplication in a very beautiful way. तो आज गिरिया हुजारी का टॉपिक हमने इसलिए लिया है कि ये एक बहुत ही बुनियादी मौजू है और इसको समझने से स्पिरिचुअल प्रोग्रेस का रास्ता खुल जाता है। If we understand it well, this is the first step or first miracle which could lead us towards the spiritual progress. So हमारी रूहानी जिंदगी का ये एक बहुत ही फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल है और इसको जानने के बाद जो है वो हम आहिस्ता आहिस्ता गिरिया हुजारी के थ्रू जो है वो स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ में एंटर हो सकते हैं। Okay, the meaning of गिरिया हुजारी, it's a compound Persian word. Giriya means to weep, to shed tears, and zari, which comes from the Persian word zaridan, it means to consider oneself weak, infirm, and feeble. ये एक फारसी लफ्ज है। गिरिया का मतलब है रोना और आंसू बहाना, और जारी का मतलब है अपने आप को बहुत कमजोर समझना, अपने आप को बहुत नाकिस समझना और फरियाद करना। To pray with Girya Huzari is considered to be a special ibadat. Any ibadat which we do with shedding tears, that is considered to be a special ibadat. We do different kinds of ibadat, but any ibadat where tears are there, this is considered to be a special ibadat. It is an ibadat done with utmost humility and tender-heartedness and flowing tears. That means that it creates a lot of humility and our heart gets very soft and sometimes we cannot stop our tears. गिरिया हुजारी के साथ इबादत करना एक बहुत स्पेशल इबादत तस्वुर की जाती है। यानी आप मुख्तलिफ किस्म की इबादत करते हैं, लेकिन जब आप गिरिया हुजारी के साथ इबादत करते हैं तो ये एक खास इबादत होती है और ये बहुत ही आजिज़ी से की जाती है, जिसमें आपके दिल की नरमी बहुत अहम होती है और आपके आंसू जो है वो मुसलसल बहते रहते हैं। Now it is mostly done with sujood. In Quran, wherever Girya Huzari is mentioned, mostly it is mentioned with sujood. So even if sujood is done on its own, the Holy Quran says, do the sajda and get closer to Allah. So wasjud waqtarib, you perform sajda and get closer to Allah. Sajda itself is a very important thing and it brings closeness to Mawla. And when it is done with flowing tears, when it is done with utmost humility and tender-heartedness, then those sujood are they are very much useful and beneficial for a moment because they soften his heart. तो इबादत जो है वो आमतौर पर सजदों के साथ की जाती है। कुरान में जहां भी गिरिया हुजारी का जिक्र है उसमें सजदे का भी कमो बेश साथ में जरूर जिक्र है। तो सजदा, वैसे भी सजदा करना जो है वो खुदा की कुर्बत के लिए जरूरी है। कुरान में खुदा फरमाता है कि सजदा करो और मुझसे करीब हो जाओ। तो अगर सजदा करने की वैसे भी फजीलत है तो फिर आंसुओं के साथ सजदा करने की और भी ज्यादा फजीलत है। And this is a prophetic ibadat. In the Quran, this particular ibadat is mentioned with all the prophet. In few verses, Allah mentions most of the prophets and then say that they are doing this kind of ibadat. So like when we were doing Adam's story and we discussed bada kaam, कि कितना बड़ा काम, how big a task is that? It's a task which Prophet used to do, बड़ा काम, मोटो काम या बैतुल ख्याल। तो गिरिया हुजारी की इबादत भी ऑलमोस्ट इतना ही बड़ा काम है जितना कि पैगंबर करते थे, but it gradually gets intense, it gets refined, and then we smoothly progress. So ये पैगंबराना इबादत है और पैगंबरों की तारीफ है कि वो गिरिया हुजारी करते थे. Now we do use this word in our dua, in our जमात खाना तस्बीह, तस्बीह गिरिया हुजारी की विनती की शमर कुटिया शाह तुझे हुजूर में कबूल कर. We use this word in our prayers, in jamaat khana in fact. But do we understand the meaning of this word? Do we feel that we have tears in our eyes when we say these words? Of course, these words are not there just to be said. These words are there to be felt, to be practiced upon, to be acting upon that. So what is it which is missing? That we have a word, and this word is meant to lead towards the softness of heart, towards shedding of tears, but we use that word and still we don't feel that state of heart, that we are not shedding tears, we are not feeling very humble as the word demands. तो हम गिरिया उजारी का लफ्ज जमात खाने में दुआ में इस्तेमाल करते हैं तस्बीह गिरिया उजारी की विनती बोल के, लेकिन हम में से कितने लोग हैं जो गिरिया उजारी का मतलब समझते हैं और उस वक्त उनके आंखों में आंसू होते हैं जब ये लफ्ज हम बोलते हैं, क्योंकि कोई भी लफ्ज बगैर मानी के जमात खाने की कार्रवाई में नहीं हो सकता है. So Girya Uzari is a fundamental and essential practice. I will show you the slides after these, and you will see that how much Quran emphasizes and praises Girya Uzari. All prophets from Hazrat Adam used to do Girya Uzari and Munajat. Hazrat Dawood added music to it. Now this is another very interesting topic and perhaps needs a lecture on its own. That Dawood, you all have heard that the book revealed to the Hazrat Dawood was Zabur. And if you read Zabur, you will be surprised that Zabur is not talking the way Quran addresses us, that, oh, Mu'mins, do this and do that. Zabur is mostly a book of supplication. It mostly has the words of Hazrat Dawood himself. So it's a different kind of revealed books. From amongst the revealed books, Zabur is a very different kind of book. And it has the supplication of Hazrat Dawood, who says that I will praise you and I will praise you with music. I will praise you playing rubab, and he talks about other instruments. So his Zabur is a form of Girya Huzari. And he added music to it. And the Holy Quran praises their melting supplication of all the prophets. तो मैंने अभी अर्ज किया कि गिरिया हुजारी एक बहुत बुनियादी प्रैक्टिस है और तमाम पैगंबर, अब आप कुछ आयत देखेंगे जिसमें खुदा तमाम पैगंबरों का जिक्र करता है कि वो गिरिया हुजारी और मुनाजात करते थे. हजरत दाऊद जो है वो गिरिया हुजारी के साथ उन्होंने म्यूजिक को भी ऐड किया, वो म्यूजिक के साथ गिरिया हुजारी करते थे. आप ज़बूर को पढ़ेंगे जो हजरत दाऊद पर रिवील होने वाली किताब है, तो ज़बूर में शायद दूसरी किताबों की तरह कमांडमेंट्स नहीं है, या ज्यादातर हिस्सा वो है जिसमें दाऊद खुद खुदा से गुफ्तगू कर रहे हैं, दाऊद खुद खुदा से कन्वर्सेशन कर रहे हैं, खुदा से बात कर रहे हैं और अपने पिघले हुए दिल की बात कर रहे हैं, म्यूजिक के साथ खुदा की इबादत करने की बात कर रहे हैं. तो मुनाजात जो है वो हजरत दाऊद के चैप्टर में भी हमें बहुत ही वाज़े नजर आती है और कुरान में इन तमाम पैगंबरों की मजमूई तारीफ, कलेक्टिव प्रेज जो है वो की गई है. Now I have put the verse and the Urdu translation and English translation both in the next slide. तो कुरान में खुदा फरमाता है, इन्नल लज़ीना ऊतुल इल्मा मिन क़ब्लिही इज़ा युतला अलैहिम यख़िर्रूना लिल अस्क़ानी सुज्जदन. जिन लोगों को इससे पहले इल्म दिया गया है, उन्हें जब ये सुनाया जाता है तो वो मुंह के बल सजदे में गिर जाते हैं. अब इससे पहले की जो आयत हैं उसमें खुदा पैगंबरों का जिक्र करता है. ये जानना जरूरी है कि इस आयत से पहले की आयत का टॉपिक क्या चल रहा था. तो खुदा पैगंबरों की बात करता है और फिर आगे खुदा फरमाता है, व यक़ूलूना सुब्हाना रब्बिना इन काना वअदु रब्बिना लमफ़ऊला. और वो कहते हैं पाक है हमारा रब, उसका वादा तो पूरा होना ही था. व यख़िर्रूना लिल अस्क़ानी यबकूना, وَيُزِيدُهُمْ خُشُوعًا. वो रोते हुए मुंह के बल गिर जाते हैं और इसे सुनकर उनकी आजिजी और ज्यादा बढ़ जाती है. ये chapter 17 verse 109. Surely those who are given the knowledge before it fall down on their faces in humble prostration, saying, Glory to our Lord. Verily the promise of our Lord must be fulfilled. They fall down on their faces, weeping, and it increaseth their humility. Now the verses before that are talking about prophets in general. So sometimes it is very important to know what has been said before. This is known as maqabal, means before this particular ayat, what has been said. Sometimes it makes a very good connection and helps us understand things. So before that, Allah is talking about prophets, He's praising them, and then He says that those who are given the knowledge before it, before the time of Hazrat Muhammad, because he is talking to Hazrat Muhammad. So they fall down on their faces in humble prostration. You can see the words here, which says, yakhiruna, they fall down on their faces, sujjadam, while in prostration. They perform prostration. And here, yabkuna, this is the word for crying. In Arabic, bakiya is the word for crying. Yapuna, so they cry. It's a word which is mentioned very openly. It's not even in any parable or ishara. So they fall down in humble prostration, and they fall down on their faces weeping, and it increaseth their humility. So whatever is said for prophets, it is not confined to their own lives. It's a lesson for moments. And moments are given a message that you have to perform Girya Hozari like that. And it is evident from many other commands given to the Prophet or the praises of prophets which are mentioned in the Holy Quran. There is another word. This is chapter 19, verse 58. And here you would see Allah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ulaika allazina an'ama Allahu alayhim minan nabiyyin. ये वो लोग हैं जिन पर अल्लाह ने पैगंबरों में से फजल किया. कौन कौन से पैगंबरों के नाम लेता है खुदा? मिन ज़ुर्रियति आदमा, आदम की प्रोजेनी से, आदम की औलाद से. व मिम्मन हमलना मा नूहिम, जिनको हमने नूह के साथ सवार किया. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّةِ Ibrahima, and the progeny of Ibrahim, وَإِسْرَائِيلَ, and progeny of Hazrat Yaqub, وَمِمَّنْ هَدَيْنَا وَاجْتَبَيْنَا, और जिनको हमने हिदायत दी और मुंतखब कर लिया. إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُ الرَّحْمَنِ خَرُّوا سُجَّدًا وَبُكِيًّا. ये वो लोग हैं जिन पर अल्लाह ने पैगंबरों में से फजल किया. Now he talks about the prophets, यानी औलाद आदम में से और उन लोगों में से जिनको हमने नूह के साथ सवार किया, और इब्राहिम और याकूब की औलाद में से, और उन लोगों में से जिनको हमने हिदायत दी और बरगुजीदा किया. जब रहमान की आयत उनको सुनाई जाती हैं तो वो रोते हुए सजदे में गिर जाते हैं. These are they unto whom Allah showered favor from among the prophets, the seed of Adam, and those whom we carried with Nuh, and the seed of Ibrahim and Israel, and from among those whom we guided and chose. When the ayats of the beneficent were recited unto them, they fell down adoring and weeping. So this is another clear ayat about prophets doing Girya Hozari, prophets crying. And the word which is used, it's a clear word which says they are crying. And here it's also Kharru Sujadam, they fall down prostrating, Wabukiya, while crying. रोते हुए सजदे में गिर जाते हैं. So the life of prophets is an example for moments, and it's giving a message to all of us to cry like they did, to try and do our ibadat like they did. And that's where even as great as a work like Betul Khayal is there for us to follow. So I want you to note when the ayats of the Beneficent were recited unto them. They fell down adoring and weeping. So it is the ayat of their revealed books. Because when Allah is talking to Prophet Muhammad, then here ayat of Quran is meant, but because he is talking about the prophets before him, so it's whatever was their sahifa or revealed books or guidance. When that was recited, they fell down adoring and weeping. So we'll talk about it in detail. So weeping under the influence of ayats. जब ayat पढ़ी जाती हैं तो वो रोते हैं. Now this is very important and we need to understand that. Ayat is miracles and signs. Ayat has two meanings, miracles and sign. Those signs and miracles could be zahiri, it could be batini. Now, we believe that there are two main miracles of Islam, and that is Imam and the Quran. Imam and the Quran are two greatest signs of Islam, of Allah, and two greatest miracles. So, that ayat makes sense that when those ayats are recited, they fall down, praying and weeping. And Maula Ali says, Ana ayatullah. I am the miracles of Allah. Ana ayatullah. So ayat is one verse of Quran, but ayat means the signs of Allah, and ayat means the miracle of Allah. So Maula Murtaza Ali says, Ana ayatullah, that I am the miracles of Allah. This is quoted in Kawkab-e-Durri. And so now we understood that there are two miracles in Islam, and that is Imam and the Quran. And it is confirmed by the saying of Hazrat Maula Murtaza Ali, who says, I am the miracles of Allah. So prophets wept listening to Zahiri and Batini miracles, Imam and Quran, and that made them cry. Like now they listening to it. So if we are listening to Hidayat in Zahir of Maulana Hazrat Imam, this is a Zahiri ayat. And if Maula creates that opportunity for our life that we progress inside, internally, then we can listen to him in Batin also. And that's where Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah Alayhi has referred to Momin and Murshid as two ends of telephone. They listen to each other. They understand each other. So these are Zahiri and Batini miracles of the light of Imam, which may be taking place in Zahir or in Batin. So Prophet's tears were tears of humility, appreciation and gratitude. They cry for Didar. Well, we cry for Didar. I mean, one of the, because Imam is ayat of Allah, now it is established that Maula Murtaza Ali Salawatullah Alayhim and every Imam of the time. So today, Imam of the time for us is Ayatullah, the miracles of Allah. When he enters the Darbar or the Dargah, many of us cry. We can't explain why. We don't know why, but we cry. Most of us cry, or they feel like crying. It is influence of that miracle of Imam. Now this is the effect of ayat. This is the influence of that ayat. Imam is a miracle, Zahiri miracle as well as Batini miracle. So this is the pressure of that Zahiri miracle which makes us cry. And because we are connected to him, we look at him and we forget everything. There's a beautiful verse in Urdu poetry which says ke qatre ko dariya se aayi sada, tu aur nahi main aur nahi, meri rahmat se tu hubab bana, tu aur nahi main aur nahi. That while we see the ocean says that, oh, the drop, you have come from me, you and I are the same. So when there is Didar, there is unconscious announcement of that unity. Hum tam donu saiyan ek hain, saiyan hum sum parda kholo. So it is that unity which we feel at the core of our heart, and that's where we cry. And we cannot explain why are we crying. Some may wonder, why do we cry? Many people find it strange if somebody cries. But now it's coming more and more acceptable in Didar and Darbar that when we see Imam, under the influence of that living miracle, we cry. And similarly, the wise cries as he understands the depth and hikmat of the book. Because there are two miracles, although they are joined in one, and we can perhaps talk about it sometimes later. It is one in essence, but there is a book and there is Imam, because Imam is living book for us. So when we understand the depth and hikmat of the Quran, of book, because book has two aspects, Zahir and hikmat. So, and Quran mentions these two aspects. And he says that whoever has been given the wisdom, the hikmat, he has been given the abundance good. So, hikmat is something, hikmat is tawil, hikmat is inner meaning of Quran, farman, ginan. And that's where, once we understand that depth, one may cry because something is appealing him or her from inside. It is the influence of that miracle. So this is very interesting when it is said that when the ayats of the beneficent were recited unto them, they fell down adoring and weeping. So miracle of the Quran and miracle of Imam. These are two living miracles. Whether we see them or listen to them in Zahir, or if Mawla gives us this opportunity in Batin, because the possibility is there. That's where Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah has said that Mumin or Murshid, telephone ke do sire hain. There are two ends of the same telephone. So, इस आयत में जो अभी पीछे गुजरी कि पैगंबर जो हैं वो आयत को सुनते हैं तो रोते हैं. मैंने अर्ज किया कि आयत या साइंस जो हैं वो जाहिर में भी होती है, क्योंकि आयत एक मतलब तो कुरान की आयत है, मगर उसका एक और मानी अरबी जबान में साइंस है, निशानी, मिरेकल है, मौजज़ा. जब कुरान में आता है कि वो आयत को सुनते थे तो रोते थे, तो अपने अपने जमाने में जैसी भी उनकी हिदायत की किताब थी, या जब वर्बली वो पढ़ी जाती थी, जिसको वो सुनते थे तो वो रोते थे. और आयत का एक और मतलब ये है कि बातिन में भी अगर कोई कुरान सुनता है, फरमान सुनता है, इमाम की पुकार सुनता है, तो वो मिरेकल है. एंड वन में क्राई व्हेन लिसनिंग टू कुरान इन बातिन. तो इस्लाम में दो मौजज़े हैं, इमाम और कुरान. और मौला अली ने फरमाया है, अना आयातुल्लाह, मैं ही खुदा की आयत हूँ, मैं ही खुदा के मौजज़ात हूँ, मैं ही खुदा की निशानी हूँ. और इसकी वजह से जमाने का इमाम खुदा की आयत है. और मैंने अर्ज किया कि जब इमाम दीदार के लिए तशरीफ लाते हैं तो हम रोते हैं, हमको पता नहीं होता है कि हम क्यों रो रहे हैं. बाज़ औक़ात गिनान को सुनते सुनते हम रोते हैं, लेकिन हम समझा नहीं सकते हैं कि हम क्यों रो रहे हैं, और इस रोने के बाद हमें बहुत अच्छा फील भी होता है. तो ये आयत का असर है, क्योंकि इमाम खुदा की जिंदा आयत है, ये आयत का असर है. और तमाम प्रोफेट्स जो हैं वो भी इसी तरह रोते थे कि या तो वो जाहिर में उस हिदायत को, आयत को सुनते थे, या बातिन में इमामान की आयत, इमामान के आवाज को, उनकी हिदायत को सुनते थे. जैसे हजरत इमाम सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह ने फरमाया कि मुर्शिद और मुरीद टेलीफोन के दो सिरे हैं. तो वो दो सिरे हैं, इसका मतलब वो एक दूसरे से गुफ्तगू कर सकते हैं और एक दूसरे को सुन सकते हैं. तो आयत के तहत, और दूसरी आयत जो है वो खुद कुरान है. जैसे जैसे हम कुरान, गिनान, चूंकि कुरान की बेसिस पर गिनान बनाकर हमको दिए गए हैं, फरमान भी कुरान ही की तशरीह होते हैं, तो इस माना में जो है वो वक्त और जमाने के हिसाब से इमाम करता है, और यही इस्माइली मजहब का डायनामिज्म है. तो जो कुरान की हिकमत, फरमान की हिकमत, गिनान की हिकमत हम अंदरूनी तौर पर समझते हैं, ये भी आयत एक मौजज़े के तौर पर हम पर असरअंदाज होती है. एंड वी मे क्राई. और अपनी इस कैफियत को समझने के लिए हमें कुरान की ये आयत हेल्प करेगी कि when the ayats of the beneficent were recited unto them, they fell down adoring and weeping. Okay, then tender-heartedness of Hazrat Ibrahim, that has been specially mentioned in the Quran. It is in verse 9, chapter 9, verse 11, and chapter 11, verse 75. इन्ना इब्राहीमा लअव्वाहुन हलीम, बेशक इब्राहिम नरम दिल और बुर्दबार थे. इन्ना इब्राहीमा लहलीमुन अव्वाहुम मुनीब, बेशक इब्राहिम बहुत वक़ार वाले, नरम दिल, आहें भरने वाले और गिराने वाले थे। हजरत इब्राहिम की तारीफ है। लोग अव्वाहुन का तर्जुमा सिर्फ आहें भरने के लिए करते हैं, लेकिन इसका एक मतलब है गिराना, रोना। ये वो आहें भरने की बात है जो मोहब्बत में भरी जाती है। ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है कि दुनिया का, खुदा का इतना बड़ा पैगंबर दुनिया के गम में आहें भरता हो। तो आहें भरना आमतौर पर गम में इंसान आह भरता है, लेकिन ये रूहानी गम था, मारिफत का गम था। जैसे इमाम सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि का एक इरशाद है, तुम मारिफत का गम करो। इमाम ने मुहर्रम का मातम करने से मना करते हुए फरमाया है, ये मौला के प्राइवेट फरमान्स में मैंने पढ़ा है कि मौला ने फरमाया तुम मारिफत का गम करो। तो इब्राहिम अगर आह भरते थे तो ये मारिफत का गम था, और वो गिराने वाले थे, रोने वाले थे। So Ibrahim was most tender-hearted. He used to sigh. Now he was not sighing. The sigh was not sigh of grief. A great Payghambar of Allah, if he sighs expressing his grief, then what will be the lesson and example for the moments? So he was, it was the grief of love of Mawla. It was the grief of marifat, like Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah says, कि तुम मारिफत का गम करो. You should be doing gam of marifat. If there is any grief allowed, then it is the grief of marifat, that you feel at your heart that why am I not progressing in that marifat? And you should be thinking about it, you should be reflecting about it. So Ibrahim was imploring, he was forbearing, and he was tender-hearted, and he used to sigh over, and that sigh, Urdu में इसको गिराना भी कहते हैं, which means rona with tears. And in the hadith of Sahih Bukhari, it is said that beard of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam dripping wet when he prayed. उनकी दाढ़ी से आंसुओं के कतरे गिरते थे। जब वो इबादत करते थे तो वो खुदा के हुजूर में इतना रोते थे कि उनकी दाढ़ी गीली हो जाती थी और उनसे कतरे गिरते थे। ये पैगंबरों का शिवा है। और फिर हमने हजरत याहिया की स्टोरी सुनी है। ये पीर पंदियाते जवान मर्दी में है। पीर पंदियाते जवान मर्दी का उर्दू ट्रांसलेशन अल्लामा नसीरुद्दीन हुंजाई साहिब ने किया है, और ये उनके उर्दू ट्रांसलेशन के पेज 91 पर है। ये किताब आपको ismaililiterature.org और monoreality.org इन दोनों साइट्स पर आपको ये किताब मिल जाएगी। फिलहाल मोनोरेलिटी पर शायद इंग्लिश बुक्स हैं, मगर इस्माइली लिटरेचर पर आपको ये दोनों बुक्स मिलेंगी। तो इसका एक चैप्टर है रूहानी तरक्की का राज। ये वो नसीहतें हैं जो हजरत इमाम मुस्तनसिर बिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि ने मोमिनीन के लिए लिखी थी, और इसमें एक स्टोरी हजरत याहिया की है। ए मोमिनो, याहिया पैगंबर अलैहि सलाम का किस्सा सुनो कि आप दिन रात रोया करते थे और आराम नहीं लेते। एक दिन हक तआला की तरफ से याहिया पैगंबर अलैहि सलाम पर हजरत जिब्राईल अलैहि सलाम नाजिल हुआ और कहा, ए याहिया पैगंबर अलैहिस सलाम, पैगंबर आलमीन फरमाता है कि तू इस कदर क्यों रोता है? मुझे तुझ पर बहुत रहम आ रहा है। अगर तू बिहिश्त के लिए रोता है तो मैंने वो तुझे इनायत कर दी, और अगर तू दोज़ख के खौफ से रोता है तो वो मैंने तुझ पर हराम कर दिया। याहिया पैगंबर अलैहिस्सलाम ने अर्ज की, मैं न तो बिहिश्त के लिए रोता हूँ और न ही दोज़ख के खौफ से, बल्कि तेरी मुलाकात और दीदार के लिए गिरिया हुजारी करता हूँ। इस वक्त परवरदिगार आलम ने फरमाया कि अगर तू मेरे दीदार के लिए गिरिया हुजारी करता है तो इससे भी ज्यादा गिरिया हुजारी करता रहे, ताकि तू अपनी मुराद को पहुंचे। जब तक तू इस दुनियाए फानी में है तो इत्मीनान से न बैठ और बहुत ही गिरिया हुजारी किया कर। Pirbandiyate Jawan Mardi, English translation, page 32-33. The same story is there. O believers, listen to the story of Prophet Yahya, who wept day and night, taking no respite, Once Jibrail came from God, the Al-High, descending to Yahya and said, O Yahya, the creator of the two worlds asks, for what reason are you crying so much? I feel great pity for you. If you cry coveting paradise, it is granted to you. If you are crying from fear of hell, it is prohibited to touch you. The Prophet Yahya replied, I cry neither coveting paradise nor from fear of hell. I cry in the ardent desire of thy vision, which is known as liqa, and thy didar. Then the Creator said, if thou criest for the sake of my didar, then cry much more in order to attain thy purpose. Whilst you remain in this world, remain in safety and cry much. So this is Pir Pandiyati Jawan Mardi, English translation, page 32-33. So this was the exemplary life of prophets. They cried for didar. We do pray, Ya Mawla, Zahiri, Batini, Nurani, Didar, Inayat Farma. How could one reach to that Didar if the conditions of reaching that Didar is not fulfilled? And this is apparent from the lives of the prophets who cried for Didar. So in the stories of the prophets, this is an example for you. This is a lesson for you that Hazrat Ibrahim used to sigh, and he was tender-heartedness, and he used to cry. It implies that he was crying because it says he was imploring, beseeching, earnestly requesting, begging. So girgirana, it's in Urdu. And Prophet Yahya, if he was crying for didar, then this is a great lesson for us. This is a message for lovers. How could we attain to the destination of didar with our dry eyes when it was the condition for a prophet that unless he cries, he is not going to reach his purpose? So this is from the story of prophets. So we use the word without knowing its meaning, without practicing it in action. And perhaps sometimes I feel that members of Jamaat also feel shy, that why should we be crying? And a smiley should always be smiling. Yes, we have to be smiling always. But this is for spiritual progress. Nobody is asking to cry in public. You can cry in your private ibadat. Even if in Jamaat Khana you feel like crying, the tears, you tear up, that is fine. Because this was the path of the prophets. And imagine if Prophet Muhammad's beard was dripping wet, then how much he used to cry. The words for Giya Huzari in the Quran are tazarru. This is a very important word in Quran, and it repeatedly appears. Beg someone earnestly or desperately. Girgirana, that is the Urdu version. Yabkuna, Bukiya, and Awwahun. So those who are interested in Arabic language and want to understand that where the word Giya Huzari is exactly mentioned, so these are few of the words which appear in Quran. And in Ginan, Pir says, Venati karun, अर्ज करूं, ये आपने ये गिनान सुने हैं, और अभी हमारी एक बहन शनाज ने जिस तरह से गिनान पढ़ा, उसकी आवाज में गिरिया गुजारी का टच था, चूंकि पीर ने रो रो के लिखा था. जब पीर ने रो रो के लिखा है तो इसको पढ़ते हुए हमारा दिल नर्म होता है, हमारा दिल पिघल जाता है. तो दासी तेरी रे सामी तेरे दर उबी अर्ज करे छे जूरी हाथ. आप इसमें इम्प्लोरिंग देखें, इसमें अर्ज करने की इंटेंसिटी देखें, that with what intensity peers have mentioned. हाथ जोड़ी ने सामी अर्ज करूं छूं हर दम रह जो मोरे साथ. ए जी विनती करूं छूं साहिब मोरा ने हंसी ने सामू जुओ जी. हंसी बोला वो मारा हंसा जीना राजा शर्म अमारी या अली तो ये जी. I implore you, O my master, look at me with a smile. I stand before you. Call me with a smile, O sovereign of my soul. My honor is in your hand. Is it in your keeping, O Ali? So that's how Our peers implored, besieged, call Mola while crying. If today Ginan makes us cry, it means Peer he had transformed completely into Giriya Hozari, that whatever he wrote, it has so much fire in that. It has so much power in that it makes you cry. Because while he was writing, he was crying. Then there is a prophetic tradition. There are different versions of that tradition, but I have just chose one here. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "There is no drop dearer to God than a drop of blood which is shed in the way of God, or a teardrop shed in the depth of the night for fear of God." Now this hadith is quoted in Daimul Islam, one of the famous books of Sayyidina Qazi Nauman, a great personality of Ismaili history. So the Prophet says, there is no drop dearer to God than a drop of blood shed in the way of God, and a tear drop shed in the depth of the night for fear of God. We'll not discuss the first tear or drop which is mentioned, because it has to be understood in today's context, and it could have many shades of meaning. But the important part for us, a tear drop shed in the depth of the night for fear of God. It is a moment when he cries, praying at night, when the night gets dark, the darkness gets intense. He wakes up and he cries. And that tear is very dear to Allah. He values that tear like he values the tear of a drop of blood of a martyr. And there is one other version of this hadith which says, a drop of ink from the pen of a scholar. So 3 drops are dear to Allah: drop of blood shed in his way, drop of tear shed in his love, and drop of ink which a scholar writes in his love. If his ink, his pen spreads love, that even that drop of ink, Allah loves that. And in his wasiyat, in his testament, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned few things to Hazrat Maula Murtaza Ali to follow. This is known as wasiyat in Urdu and Arabic. And he said, and the 4th is abundance of weeping, kasratul buka, for God, so he may build 1,000 houses in paradise for every tear drop. This is again mentioned in book Daimul Islam, volume 2, Kitabul Wasaya, where he talks about the Maula Murtaza Ali being his legatee. In that book, this particular testament of Prophet is mentioned, that he was giving some last instructions to Maula Murtaza Ali, or perhaps doing it at any other point of his life. I'm not very sure. But he said he gave few wasiyat to Maula Murtaza Ali, and one of them was that the 4th is abundance of weeping, and in Arabic the word is kasratul buka. He says that in ahadith or in quotes of Maula Murtaza Ali, a mu'min is asked to increase 3 things and decrease 3 things. Qillatul ta'am, qillatul manam, and qillatul kalam. Decrease your talking, decrease your sleep, and decrease your food. Lessen these 3 things. And increase these 3 things. And what is that? Kasratul zikr, kasratul sujud, and kasratul buka. Increase your sajdas, increase your crying, and increase your zikr. So moments have been asked to decrease or lessen few of his habits or few of the things in his life, and increase few of the habits in his life. Qillate kalam, qillate ta'am, qillate manam. That you're eating, you're sleeping, and you're talking. You try and lessen these things in your life. But increase these 3 things: kasrate zikr, kasrate sujud, and kasratul buka. Crying, sajda, and zikr. So he may build 1,000 houses in paradise. What is a house in a paradise? Imam, the living Imam himself is a house of paradise for us, and it is his annihilation. It's a very interesting topic of house which Allah talks about. It's the living house, and that is Imam. Hazrat Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, because she was a Momin lady, she asks in her talk is in the Holy Quran, that she says that, oh Allah, give me a house in paradise in your neighborhood. Now, Bihisht is not an extended material reality for us Ismailis. We believe in its ta'wil. So it is not that Bangalore number 301 is here and there another Bangalore could be built for Hazrat Asiya, which may say 302 or whatever numbering. No, it means annihilate me in your royal Bangalore, in your Nurani Bangalore. And it is imploring for unity, unification. So through Maula Ali, moments are guided that they must be doing Giriya Hozari and Kasratul Buka. तो एक पैगंबर सल्लम की हदीस है कि खुदा के नज़दीक 3 कतरे बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हैं, बहुत प्यारे हैं. एक वो कतरा जो किसी शहीद के जिस्म से खून का बहा हो, एक वो कतरा जो किसी आलिम के कलम से इल्म की रोशनी फैलाने के लिए बहा हो, और एक वो कतरा जो किसी आशिक की आंख से खुदा की मोहब्बत और खुदा के खौफ में बहा हो. तो खुदा इन 3 कतरों को पसंद करता है और सबसे ज्यादा महबूब रखता है. तो वो कतरा आंसू का जो हम रात को इबादत करते वक्त बहाते हैं, किसी भी वक्त हो सकती है गिरिया गुजारी, मगर रात की इबादत में आंसू बहाना और भी ज्यादा अहम चीज है. और रसूल अकरम सल्लल्लाहु मौला मुर्तजा अली को जो उन्होंने वसीयतें की थी, ये दाइमुल इस्लाम में उसका जिक्र है. उन वसीयतों में से एक चौथी वसीयत ये थी कि ए अली, कसरत बुका किया करो खुदा के लिए, ताकि वो तुम्हारे लिए जन्नत में बहुत से घर बना दे. तो कसरत बुका यानी रोने में ज्यादती, ज्यादा रोना, जो हमने हजरत याहिया की स्टोरी में देखा, वही है कसरतुल बुका. और अहादीस में और मौला मुर्तजा अली के अक़वाल में 3 चीजों को बढ़ाने और 3 चीजों को घटाने का जिक्र है. 3 चीजों की किल्लत जरूरी है, उसका जिंदगी में उसमें कमी करना जरूरी है. किल्लत कलाम, किल्लत ताआम और किल्लत मनाम. खाना खाने में, सोने में और गुफ्तगू करने में, इन 3 चीजों को कम करना है. यानी ऐसी गुफ्तगू जिसकी जरूरत ना हो, ऐसी गुफ्तगू को कम करना है, खाने को कम करना है और सोने को कम करना है. और ये 3 चीजें अरबिक में राइम होती हैं, मनाम, कलाम और ताआम. और 3 चीजों में इजाफा करना है, वो है जिक्र, सुजूद और रोना. तो ये मोमिन को हिदायत है. और मौला मुर्तजा अली को जो वसीयत की गई है, उसके थ्रू मोमिन को वसीयत की गई है कि वो जो है वो अपने रोने में इजाफा करे. जैसे हजरत याहिया को कहा गया कि अगर तू मेरे दीदार के लिए रोता है, अगर नूरानी मुलाकात चाहता है, अगर मुझ में फना होना चाहता है, तो फिर और ज्यादा रोना, क्योंकि तुम्हारा मकसद रोए बगैर हासिल नहीं होगा. फिर हजरत इमाम सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि और मौलाना हाजिर इमाम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि के कुछ फरामीन हैं. कुछ फरामीन के इंग्लिश वर्जन को देखने का मुझे वक्त नहीं हुआ, इसलिए मैंने उर्दू में लिखे हैं और इंग्लिश में भी उनका जिस्ट मैं अर्ज करूंगी. हजरत इमाम सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि का दारुस्सलाम 1899 का फरमान है, जैसे बच्चा अपनी माँ से बिछड़ जाता है, गुम हो जाता है, तब वो रोता है कि कब माँ के पास पहुंचूं. When a child is lost and he is away from his mother, he cries and he keeps thinking that how and when could I reach my mother. This is the gist of the farman of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah. मतलब ओपन वर्ड्स हैं, जैसे माँ से बिछड़ता है. हम भी अपनी माँ से बिछड़ गए हैं, हम अपनी रूहानी माँ से बिछड़ गए हैं, और रूहानी माँ से बिछड़ने के बाद हम रो रहे हैं जिस तरह एक बच्चा रोता है. और ये फरमान जो है वो फरमान मुबारक रूहानी राज जो इतरब पाकिस्तान से शाया हुआ है, और मोहम्मद अली इब्राहिम नानजी साहिब की 313 वाली फरमान मुबारक की किताब में है. और फिर मौला फरमाते, तुम दुनिया में बैठे हो तब तुम्हें दिल से रोना चाहिए. अपनी तस्बीहात के लेक्चर में मैंने एक तस्बीह डिस्कस की है, या अली अगिस्नी. अगिस्नी का मतलब है ए अली तू मुझे पाले, O Ali, find me. I am lost. You find me. आप मुझे पालें, मैं दुनिया के मेले में खो चुका हूँ. एक बच्चा जब दुनिया के किसी फेयर में जाता है, किसी मेले में जाता है, तो अट्रैक्शन से वो माँ का हाथ छुड़ा के उसमें गुम हो सकता है. तो ये तस्बीह है कि ओ अली, मैं खो गया हूँ, तू मुझे पाले, तू मुझे ढूंढ ले. मैं इतने बड़े मेले में तुझको नहीं ढूंढ सकता, लेकिन तू मुझे देख सकता है, तू मुझे ढूंढ ले. So, oh Ali, I'm lost in the fair of the world. There is a mela of the world, so you find me out because I can't see you. Just likewise, like a child cannot see his mother or father in a big fair somewhere where he has lost his father or mother. फिर रोने के बारे में एक अजीब बात, एक बहुत ही अजीब फरमान है कि खुदा ना खास्ता किसी का बेटा फौत हो जाए तो मुझे अफसोस नहीं करना चाहिए. Hazrat Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi says, now this is a nasihat, this is a farman. How difficult is that? Who could control? Yes, we will cry because we are human beings, but we should not make it a point of crying forever. उस गम को दिल में जगह नहीं दो. मौला का फरमान है कि even if your son dies, you don't grieve on that. और ये एक इम्पॉर्टेंट फरमान है जो फरमान मुबारक जिसका इंग्लिश वर्जन भी है. अगर कभी हमारे रूहानी बच्चे अपनी जिंदगियों को इस तरह बना लें कि उन्हें इस बात का यकीन होने लगे कि उनके जहन मखलूक होने की बजाय खुद खालिक हैं और उनका मादी आराम व आसाइश ऐसा है कि रूहानी इनकिसारी का अब कोई जवाब नहीं, तो हम आपको अभी बता सकते हैं कि सच्ची और हकीकी खुशी कि जिसके लिए हम आपको दुआ फरमाते हैं कि उसे महसूस करने की आपको बरकत नसीब हो, वो कभी आपके दिलों को नहीं छुएगी. This is Karachi Farman, December 1964. In the minds of some, there may be one day some confusion as to the meaning and necessity for faith. And if my spiritual children were ever to manage their lives in such a way as to come to believe that their minds create rather than having been created, and that their material comfort is such that spiritual humility is no longer warranted, I can tell you now that the true and real happiness, which I pray it should be your blessings to experience, will never touch your hearts. Spiritual humility, मौला ने ये लफ्ज यूज किए हैं कि रूहानी आजिजी की अब कोई जरूरत नहीं है. If you think that spiritual humility is no more required, then the true happiness will never touch your hearts. So spiritual humility और गिरिया हुजारी, इन सब में रोने का एक कॉन्सेप्ट जो है वो बहुत वाज़ेह है. Okay. And there is one other important फरमान कि दीन की बेहतरी के लिए आपको एक बात कहते हैं, इसमें सब बातें आ जाती हैं. सबसे ज्यादा अहम बात यह है कि माँ बाप और जान से भी ज्यादा मोहम्मद और अली के जानशीन पर अपना ईमान मजबूत रखना और अली की नस्ल जो जलवा अफरोज हैं उन पर प्यार रखोगे तो आपको दुनिया में कोई डर न रहेगा. इस एक फरमान में इबादत, बंदगी और मजहब की सारी खूबियां आ जाती हैं. This is of Darussalam, 1937, that if you love Muhammad and Ali and his progeny, you will have no fear in this world. And in this one farman, all the virtues of religion are encompassed. This particular sentence makes it a very important farman, that if you love Muhammad and Ali and his progeny, then you will have no fear in the world. And in this one farman, all the virtues of religion are encompassed. So this is also inviting to love, and it is love which creates humility. If somebody is in love, in worldly love, this is also a beautiful experience. This is a glimpse of that higher love, experience of that higher love, as Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah did. So even in that love, people feel like crying or they cry. So this is the higher love, Nurani love. So crying in love is something which has been told, asked, and instructed in our religion. That's where I said this is an essential practice. It has been done by the prophets and all the walis, all the friends of Allah in the history. And this is a lesson, a practical lesson. Peers used to cry. when prophets used to cry. We have heard about Pir Sadruddin waiting for 6 months at the door of Mawla. Pir Hassan Kabiruddin used to cry. He used to do long prayers. So these were the things which are a lesson and example for us. Now, I have few slides which says wisdom of Giriya Hozari. If Karima Jumma, one of our friends, or Khayal Ali, if you are online, you may share one of the articles, Wisdom of Giriya Hozari of Allama Nasir Hunzai. It is in English and Urdu both. So you can read it later. And this also gives a lot of insight about Giriya Hozari. So what is the first wisdom? What is the purpose of having tears if we are not allowed to cry for worldly afflictions? Okay, as I said, we are human beings. Perhaps we cannot control. We do cry, and perhaps we should cry. Sometimes if our heart is heavy, but crying as a habit will create mayusi, despondency, frustration. So Imam says that even if your son has died, do not feel grieved. So if we are asked not to shed tears or don't feel grieved on worldly afflictions, then why we have been given the tears? What is the purpose of the tears? The main purpose is to shed them in love of Imam and Hikmah. Remember we talked about ayats of Allah, and prophets cried under the influence of those ayats in Zahir and in Batin. That could be spiritual conversation with Imam, spiritual progress, a particular point in spiritual journey where you listen to his ayat, you may see his ayat, his miracles, and that will make you cry. The purpose is to shed them in love of Imam and Hikmat. It is spiritual and timely rain which refreshes your heart and soul and yields desired fruits. If you cry in love of Mawla, if you cry for forgiveness, if you cry for softness of your heart, if you cry for didar, it is like the timely rain which will yield the desired fruits and flowers. Constant crying on worldly affliction would be like an untimely rain which ruins the spiritual garden of heart and creates darkness and despondency. As I said, we are human beings, we may cry, but crying intensely all the time, keeping that grief in front of our eyes, will lead to darkness and despondency. So, okay, because we are human beings, we may not be able to control it, but if we convert this crying in the love of Mawla, there is a beautiful Ginan which says that, "Oh Mawla, I have so many thorns in my heart, but I want to light a fire of your love. What shall I do? Okay, let me make these thorns of worldly waswasas, affliction, and grief the fuel of the love, the fire of your love." What a beautiful concept! That since I have a lot of thorns of worldly problems in my heart, and I also want to light the fire of your love, but I don't know what to do. So he suggested that why don't you make those thorns the fuel of the fire of love? It burns the fears and griefs of the world, and it also enlightens you. So it is the way how you see things. You can transform your griefs, you can transform those thorns into the light of the fire of love. And as Pisham says, hinted in his Ginans, that it is spiritual baths and spiritual wazu. He says that, oh, you who are going to Ganga for bathing, you must know that it is the inner self which you have to wash. Kapra dhove so kya hua, dil dhove so paave. So it is a timely rain which rains inside through our eyes, and it refreshes our batin, and it yields the fruits we want, fruits of love, fruits of wisdom. While the constant crying on worldly affairs would be like an untimely rain which will destroy the crops, and it will create darkness and despondency. तो गिरिया उजारी की हिकमत या उसकी wisdom ये है कि अगर दुनिया के गम पर रोने से मना किया गया है तो फिर आंसू क्यों दिए गए हैं? आंसू इसलिए दिए गए हैं कि इमाम की मोहब्बत में बहाए जाएं, हिकमत को हासिल करने के लिए बहाए जाएं। और जब इंसान मौला की मोहब्बत में रोता है तो ये वो बारिश है जब किसान बीज बोता है और बारिश की दुआ करता है, उस वक्त जो बारिश बरसती है, मौला की मोहब्बत के आंसू वो बारिश है। और अगर कोई दुनिया के गम में रोता रहता है, ठीक है, हम इंसान हैं, रोना आएगा, शायद रोना भी चाहिए दिल को हल्का करने के लिए, मगर उस गम को हमेशा अपनी आंखों के सामने रख कर रोते रहने से मायूसी होगी, अंदर अंधेरा होगा और इबादत बंदगी से हम बहुत दूर हो जाएंगे, क्योंकि शैतान को वसवसे डालने का मौका मिलेगा। तो रोना और इमाम की मोहब्बत में रोना रूहानी वजू है। पीर शम्स कहते हैं कि एक जगह पर गए, लोग वजू कर रहे थे और पीर जो है वो पानी लेकर बड़ी बड़ी कुल्ली करने लगे। तो लोगों ने कहा कि ये आप किस तरह वजू कर रहे हैं या क्या कर रहे हैं? तो कहा, मैं अंदर जो गंदगी है कोशिश कर रहा हूं कि उसको साफ करूं। तो वजू का एक मकसद जो है वो बातिनी तहारत है, स्पिरिचुअल प्योरिटी है, और सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं है कि जाहिर में वजू कर लिया जाए, इट हैज अ पर्पस। जैसे हमने पिछले लेक्चर्स में भी स्पिरिचुअल सिकनेस, रूहानी बीमारी पे भी बात की थी। चूंकि इंसान जिस्म, रूह और अक्ल है, तो जिस्म की तरह रूह और अक्ल को भी बीमारी होती है। और जैसे मौला ने फरमाया है कि हम आपकी रूह के तबीब हैं, वी आर डॉक्टर ऑफ योर सोल। इसका मतलब रूह की बीमारी होती है। तो गिरिया हुजारी इज अ डिलीशियस स्पिरिचुअल मेडिसिन। देयर आर मेनी मेडिसिन्स वी कांट टेक, but for spiritual sickness, when we feel sick inside, then Giriya Hozari is a delicious spiritual medicine. Giriya Hozari cleanses our heart, cleanses us from within. Because our heart is not like a machine that let's open the machine like we open machine of our car or any other machine at home and clean it. We cannot clean our heart by opening it. This is a machine which is a batini machine, and it is cleansed through Giriya Hozari. It is automatically cleaned through Giriya Hozari. यानी गिरिया होजारी से हम अपने दिल की मशीन को साफ करते हैं, दुनिया की किसी मशीन की तरह खोल के साफ नहीं कर सकते। गिरिया होजारी works as prevention as well as cure. Both prevention and cure is one. Usually दुनिया में प्रिवेंशन अलग होता है, क्योर अलग होता है, परहेज करने की बात अलग होती है, इलाज की बात अलग होती है। प्रिवेंशन एंड क्योर आर टू सेपरेट थिंग्स समटाइम्स, बट spiritual progress and spiritual health could be acquired by Giriya Hozari. Mainly, it works as prevention as well as cure, because it keeps away the shaitan and its waswasa. Now, there is an interesting thing that one of the old names of Makkah is Bakka. And this comes from the very root of crying. Like we saw words, Bukiya, Yapkuna. So there is a message our Buzurg have explained that this word is derived from the root of Bakaya, Rona, and it is giving a message that if you were to reach the spiritual house of Allah, and Imam, the spiritual house of Allah is Imam for us, then it is not possible without humility. People go to Mecca, and there are very interesting poems of Pir Nasir Khusro and even Shams Tabrizi, who talks to those Hajis and says that, where are you going? If you're looking for God, He is here within your heart. So if one wants to reach the house of Allah, the living house of Allah is Imam, and it is not possible without humility. And it is not for nothing that one of the old names of Makkah was Bakka. And it is mentioned in Quran. Allah has remembered Makkah as Bakka. So this is also one of the indications that it is through Giriya Hozari that the house of Allah will get alive within you, or you will reach that. And spiritual, this is our own heart also, which is the house of Allah. Yeah. So during this COVID period, I had recorded one lecture. Let's awaken the Jamaat Khana of our own existence, that we have a Jamaat Khana within our heart. And look at the circumstances. When these circumstances are there, this does not stop you from practicing religion. It is a message that the purpose of going to Jamaat Khana was ultimately to awaken your Jamaat Khana within yourself, because this is also a house of Allah. The prophetic tradition says that Allah lives, He loves to live in the heart of a mu'min. Agar chandan keri kotari, sufal rachiya kamar, Tara dida che premna, saya kholar ao. That, oh Allah, oh Mawla, I have decorated my heart with good deeds, with fragrances, and I have locked it with love. Why don't you come and open the house of my heart and sit in there? So this is the heart, which is our personal Jamaat Khana, like we have a local Jamaat Khana and one cosmic Jamaat Khana or universal Jamaat Khana, which is Imam himself. So going to the local Jamaat Khana means that try and reach the universal Jamaat Khana, and also awaken your personal Jamaat Khana. If we keep going and do not know the purpose of going to Jamaat Khana, it is for the sake of spiritual progress. It is for the sake of awakening our heart in here. So one of the way we could do it's through pain of love, crying of love, and reaching the Bakka, the house of Allah, which is in Mecca, and one of its name is Bakka. तो ये हमको बीमारी से बचाती भी है और बीमारी का इलाज भी करती है. और मक्का का एक पुराना नाम बक्का भी होता था, जिसका जो इसी रूट से आया है, रोना. तो जिसको खुदा के घर में पहुंचना है उसको गिरिया गुजारी करनी है. और इमाम हमारे लिए खुदा का जिंदा घर है, वो हमारे लिए आलमी जमाअत खाना है, यूनिवर्सल जमाअत खाना है. हमारे पास एक मकामी जमाअत खाना होता है जिसमें जाने का एक मकसद होता है कि हम आलमी जमाअत खाने और अपने जाती जमाअत खाने को पाएं, उसको फाइंड आउट करें. और उस जमाअत खाने में जब हालात ऐसे हुए और जमाअत खाने बंद हो गए, उस वक्त हमारे लिए और भी ज्यादा बड़ा मैसेज था कि हम अपने दिल के जमाअत खाने को जिंदा करें और उसमें गिरिया गुजारी से उसको सजाएं. On the path of spiritual progress, there are sequence of miracles, and if you could do Giriya Hozari, this is the first and foremost miracle of moment's life. It is a powerful means to clean our heart, and then there is a ladder of miracles which we may be able to climb one by one. With Giriya Hozari, ibadat becomes a joy and not a burden. Then you will love doing ibadat. In morning Jamaat Khana, before the Baitul Khayal ibadat starts, if somebody recites a Ginan with very sweet, melodious voice and having a meaning, and the person recites it, feeling it at his own heart, it melts you. You may shed tears or you may tear up. And then you feel that you were able to concentrate better than the normal circumstances. So this is a powerful means to clean our heart, and it makes ibadat, it converts ibadat into a joy. And you start to do it automatically. And one of the way of Giriya Hozari is that you talk to Mawla. You say, oh Mawla, I am very sinful. I have not been able to do what you have asked me to do. I know you may not find what you are looking in my amal, but I find all the blessings which I desire are there in your treasure. So you grant me help. My heart is hard. I'm crying like a child. So I mean, these are the words. This is one of the way you can ask Mawla to help. And if these words continue, one day they transform, and you can see a divine spark in those words, which is known as Tawfiq, Ta'id, and Awliyai Wahi. There is a prophetic Wahi, and that has stopped with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Sufis talk about Awliyai Wahi, that if a friend of Allah talks to Allah and he is immersed and he is just lost in his love, then while talking to Allah, he may be getting the words from the sky. He may be getting the words from the heavens. He might not have spoken those words in his regular religious life, but those words come to him. So this is something which comes from the sky. Once you reach that level, then the words start to pour. So the pure heart reflects the nur, and the words are elevated. Though the level of those words is raised, you are surprised at the kind of words you are using. If you continuously do Giriya Hozari, talk to Mawla. This is a very useful conversation. And Hazrat Dawood, whose Zabur is like him talking to Allah. He talks to Allah. He's doing Giriya Hozari, supplication, imploring. So this is, and his words are locked as a revealed book. This is something very significant, that Dawood's word were then like a wahi. Since it may open a very different topic, so I'll just sum it up here. कि अगर आप गिरिया उजारी करते हैं, आप मौला से गुफ्तगू करते हैं, या मौला मेरा दिल सख्त है, मैं चाहने के बावजूद आंसू नहीं बहा सकती हूँ, मुझे सजदे में रोना नहीं आता है, और मुझसे जिक्र नहीं होता है, मेरा जिक्र आगे नहीं बढ़ता है, मैं एक वो बच्चा हूँ जो मेले में खो गया हूँ, या मौला मेरी तरफ देखो, मेरा हाथ पकड़ो. अगर आप इस तरह मौला से गुफ्तगू करेंगे, गिरिया उजारी करेंगे, तो आपके आंसू आने लगेंगे, आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आपका दिल पिघलेगा और ये अल्फाज बदलते जाएंगे. आप खुद अपने अल्फाज से हैरान हो जाएंगे. आपकी इबादत एक खुशी बन जाएगी, एक बोझ नहीं रहेगा. और ये मोमिन की जिंदगी में पहला मौजज़ा है, और इसके बाद स्पिरिचुअल पाथ पर आगे से आगे मौजज़ात होते रहेंगे. Okay, so when should we do Girya Hozari? Girya Hozari is like spiritual shower, spiritual wuzu. Our body needs cleansing every day. It's a spiritual shower. We can do it every day. We should be doing it every day, in fact, because our soul gets sick, our soul gets impurified due to nafse amara. And that's where Girya Hozari, like a spiritual rain, helps us. One needs to do it regularly, but especially when feeling hard-heartedness, having waswasas, when we want to ask for forgiveness, we wish to receive blessings, we want to concentrate on Isme Azam Ibadat, when we feel a need for inner transformation, moral and spiritual. Moral is also very important. We sometimes use the words we don't want to use. We sometimes want to control ourselves, but we can't. Girya Hozari will transform you. It will give you a control. When we want to develop taste for ibadat and acquisition of knowledge, we pick up a book, but we don't enjoy reading. So it will develop that taste of ibadat and ilm. When we are feeling sick, disturbed, and dark from inside, when we feel that we want to express our love to Mawla. These are some of the hints, and the article of Allama Nasirun Zai, which I have referred to, this could also give you some other insight of when you should be doing Girya Hozari. Now I'll be explaining some of the occasions where Allah asks people to do Girya Hozari. And those are Quranic verses which are coming in the forthcoming slides. तो हमें किन मौकों पर गिरिया हुजारी करनी चाहिए? वैसे तो ये रूहानी बारिश है, रूहानी बात है, स्पिरिचुअल वजू है, रूहानी वजू है, इसलिए हमें रेगुलरली करना है. जिस तरह जिस्म को रेगुलर सफाई की जरूरत है, रूह को भी बाकायदा सफाई की जरूरत है. लेकिन खास तौर पर जब हमारा दिल सख्त हो जाए, इबादत में ना लगे, उसमें वसवसे आने लगे, जब हमको मौला से माफी मांगनी हो, जब मौला की बरकत को हासिल करना हो, जब इसमें आजम पर फोकस करना हो, कोशिश के बावजूद कंसंट्रेशन नहीं हो रहा है, उस वक्त गिरिया उजारी करनी चाहिए. गिरिया उजारी से हेल्प होगी. जब हमें अपनी अखलाकी और रूहानी लाइफ को चेंज करने की जरूरत महसूस हो, अखलाकी जिंदगी बहुत जरूरी है. जिसका अखलाक नहीं है, मोरल वैल्यूज नहीं है, उसकी स्पिरिचुअल तरक्की होना बहुत मुश्किल बात है. तो मोरल वैल्यूज जो हैं, उनको उस ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन के लिए भी गिरिया हुजारी मदद करती है. जब हम इबादत और इल्म के लिए एक टेस्ट डेवलप करना चाहते हैं, उस वक्त गिरिया हुजारी करनी है. और जब अंदर से हम डिस्टर्ब्ड हैं, तारीकी है, या हम मौला से अपनी मोहब्बत का इजहार करना चाहते हैं, उस वक्त खास तौर पर गिरिया हुजारी करनी चाहिए. अब कुरान में कुछ ओकेजन्स हैं जब खुदा कहता है कि गिरिया हुजारी करो, या शिकायत करता है कि उस वक्त गिरिया हुजारी क्यों नहीं की. तो ये पहला जो है वो चैप्टर 6 की वर्स 42 है. एट द टाइम ऑफ कैलेमिटीज, एफ्लिक्शन, जब मुसीबत का वक्त आए. तो इसमें खुदा फरमाता है, तुमसे पहले हमने बहुत सी कौमों की तरफ रसूल भेजे और उन कौमों को मसाइब और आलाम में मुब्तला किया ताकि वो तजर्रु करें. जर्रू ये अरबिक में एक लफ्ज है जिसका मतलब है गिरगिराएं, रोएं, बहुत ही आजिजी से दरखास्त करें. Before thee, I mean, it's addressing Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Before thee, we sent messengers to many nations, and we afflicted the nations with suffering and adversity, that they might implore. Word which is used is yatazarrauna, so that they should cry, so that they should implore, so that they should be praying humbly. So this is one of the indications in the Quran that when there is difficult time, you can do Girya Hozari. And those nations which are afflicted with suffering, if they do Girya Hozari, then that suffering and that affliction may be lifted. Like it is in the story of Yunus, that when his nation came out in a ground and they prayed, and the azab was lifted from them. So as a nation, as a community, as a humanity, if we do this Kirya Hozari, that many afflictions or calamities could be lifted also. करंटली भी जो मसला हमारे सामने है, जिस किस्म की मुश्किल है, उसमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा गिरिया गुजारी करने की खुदा की तरफ से दावत है. हार्ड हार्टेडनेस, दिस इज चैप्टर 6 वर्स 43. दिल की सख्ती या इसको कसावत कल्बी कहते हैं. तो खुदा फरमाता है, बस जब हमारी तरफ से उन पर सख्ती आई तो उन्होंने आजिजी क्यों इख्तियार नहीं की, मगर इनके तो दिल और सख्त हो गए. और शैतान ने उनको इत्मीनान दिलाया कि जो कुछ तुम कर रहे हो खूब कर रहे हो. You don't need to change. Whatever you are doing, it's fine. When the suffering reached them from us, why then did they not beg, beseech? The word which is used is tazarra'u. On the contrary, their hearts became hardened, and shaitan made what they did fair seeming to them. I mean, whatever the way they were leading their lives, Shaitan made them see that beautiful, fair seeming, and they did not want to change them. So here, the message is that when there is any suffering, you have to beg, you have to implore. Those who don't implore, their hearts become hardened. When our hearts are hardened, we cannot act upon moral values. We go to Jamaat Khana, we do not enjoy. We sit for ibadat, we can't concentrate. These are all signs of hard-heartedness. So one of the invitation from Allah is that you cry, you do Girya Hozari. Then wasting time and living in vanity, bemaksad bekar or waqt ka ziyan. This is chapter 53 verses 59 to 62. Allah says, अब यही वो बातें हैं जिन पर तुम इजहार ताज्जुब करते हो, हंसते हो और रोते नहीं हो, और ऐसे ही बेकार वक्त गुजारते हो. झुक जाओ अल्लाह के सामने और बंदगी बजा लाओ. Do you then wonder at this recital, and will you laugh and not weep? The words which is used in Arabic are وَتَزْهَكُونَ وَلَا تَبْكُونَ, and you laugh and not weep, wasting your time in vanities, but fall down in prostration of Allah and adore Him. Now here perhaps we need to establish one principle which is very fundamental. Mostly when these kinds of ayats are there, we Muslims have a tendency immediately to say that it is set for those who are kafirs, for example, who do not accept religion. But Quran is a book of shifa. Quran is a book of healing. And when Quran is a book of healing, how could it be book of healing for those who do not even accept Quran? It is a book of healing for us. It means the spiritual diseases which are mentioned, like wasting time, live in vanity, hard-heartedness, those all are the diseases which need spiritual medicine. And this is in Quran, the shifa. When there are verses like Summun, Bukmun, Umyun, Fahum la yarja'un, they are deaf, dumb, and blind, and they will not return. We immediately tend to think that, oh, this is about those who don't believe in Islam, who don't believe in God. But no, we have to hold ourselves. We are deaf if we do not listen to what we are supposed to listen to. We are dumb if we cannot speak what we are supposed to speak to. And we are blind if we cannot see what we are supposed to see. It is not the condemning the people who are born deaf, dumb, and blind in this world. Allah condemns those who have been given the potential to awaken their spiritual eye, their spiritual ear, their spiritual tongue, And despite having those blessings, they do not listen to those things. When they don't listen to, they don't speak those things, and they then do not see those things which Allah wants them to see. So when these kinds of verses are there, it is not always for people outside. It is for the people inside. First of all, they have to answer, like Farmans of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah have implied, that you will have to answer because you had a living guide. So when Allah objects and he says, so you and will you laugh and not weep, wasting your time in vanities? So we cannot just deduce that this is all being said to kafirs and those who are not with the Imam. And then there is one other verse which says, and remember your Lord within yourself, imploring, tazarru, and fearing, and in a voice not loud, in the morning and in the evening, and be not the heedless, neglectful ones. अपने रब को याद करो दिल में गिरियाउजारी करने के साथ, और जबान से भी हल्की आवाज से, तुम उन लोगों में से न हो जाओ जो गफलत में पड़े हैं. It means those who do not do गिरियाउजारी, they may just be neglectful or go in ignorance. हद से गुजरना, exceeding the limits. Call on your Lord humbly, tazarra'u, and secretly. Surely he does not love those who exceed the limits. अपने रब को पुकारो गिरगिराते हुए चुपके चुपके, यकीनन वो हद से गुजरने वालों को पसंद नहीं करता है. So what helps us not to exceed our limits in greed, in pride, and in so many other things? Girya-uzari will help. So he says that call upon your Lord humbly, secretly, because he does not love those who exceed. And see, every such ayat has word tazarru, and tazarru is crying, earnestly imploring. It is about Girya-uzari. Coming to light from darkness, say who is that delivers you from the darkness of the land and the sea when you call upon him, begging earnestly and in secret. उनसे पूछो कि जमीन और समंदर की तारीकियों से कौन तुमको खतरात से बचाता है, और कौन है जिसे तुम गिरगिरा कर और चुपके चुपके दुआएं मांगते हो. तो यहाँ पर एक नतीजा निकलता है. We can have a conclusion कि coming to light from the darkness and being saved from the dangers of the land and the sea, in Zahir and in Batin, Girya-uzari is needed. So we must have covered these things, but just to go over this slide quickly, it washes away our impurities, it creates sobriety, soberness, and concentration. It increases humility and concentration. It enhances our love. And if it is like a silent spark, it becomes like an active flame. It helps our love formula to increase. Readiness for knowledge increases the sense of gratitude and lessens complaining attitude. When the sense of gratitude is increased, then the ingratitude is gone. So it helps us to see things that how should we be grateful to Allah for what he has given to us, and not waste those blessings just complaining for those things which he has not given to us. It also gives you a power that you forgive people. You do not revenge. Your heart opens up and you happily let things go. You do not turn back and say that you have hurt me today, I will hurt you tomorrow. It raises you above jealousy, competition, worldly pomp and show. Even it enlightens your dreams. I'm thinking to talk about world of dreams in one of the lectures. It enlightens your dreams. You experience it after Girya-uzari and humility, how your dreams are changing. Sorry. Excuse me. It sharpens your mind and your thoughts. Every point has a lot other things to be said, but just in summary, ये आपके दिल की नापाकी को दूर करता है, आपके अंदर एक संजीदगी को पैदा करता है, आपकी आजिज़ी को बढ़ाता है। मौला से आपकी मोहब्बत को एक शोला बना देता है। अगर वो एक चिंगारी थी दबी हुई तो वो एक शोला बन जाती है। इससे आप इल्म के लिए तैयार हो जाते हैं। शुक्रगुजारी का एहसास बढ़ता है और आप नाशुक्री से बचने लगते हैं, क्योंकि अक्सर ये होता है कि जो नेमतें मिली हैं उनकी शुक्रगुजारी हम नहीं करते, जो नहीं मिली हैं उनकी शिकायत करते हैं। तो ये शुक्रगुजारी में इजाफा करेगा। आप लोगों को माफ कर सकेंगे। फॉरगिव एंड फॉरगेट जो इमाम का फरमान है कि आप लोगों से इंतकाम न लें, उनको माफ करें। आपके अंदर आपका दिल खुलेगा। ऑफ कोर्स इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि अपने हुकूक को छोड़ देना है, लेकिन जहां माफ करने से आपका कुछ नहीं बिगड़ता वहां माफ करने की ताकत आएगी। ये आपके अंदर हसद, मुकाबला, दुनिया की नुमाइश, इन चीजों से आपको दूर कर देगा। आपके अंदर दरवेशी पैदा करेगा, क़नाअत आएगी। आप थोड़ी चीजों पर भी बहुत खुश होंगे। आप अपनी दौलत को नहीं दिखाना चाहेंगे। ये आपके ख्वाबों को भी रोशनी देता है। आप महसूस करेंगे कि आपके ख्वाब चेंज हो रहे हैं और आपका माइंड और आपके थॉट्स जो हैं वो इससे बहुत तेज हो जाएंगे। This is one of the diagram which is given in that chapter, Wisdom of Giriya Hozari, which I have requested Khayal and Dr. Karima to share. And it says that all the virtues of love, piety, remembrance, repentance, seeking forgiveness, purification, sanctification, annihilation, fear of God, submission, struggle, imploring, they all come towards Giriya Hozari, or they all emerge from the Giriya Hozari. So all these emotions are attached to Giriya Hozari and they ultimately help us for purity. It establishes a very sweet relationship with Mawla. Concept of Giriya Hozari is a hope. It's an enlightenment. It's peace. It's friendship with Mawla. When you talk to Mawla, look at the peers, the way they talk. I mean, how frankly Peer says that, oh Mawla, come and marry me. If you don't marry me, my honor will be at stake. People will talk about me and I am now at your feet. Iti charana betharo yasha, nazara milao, that you make me sit in your feet and bring and pass that love which is in your heart for me. So it is a habit of a moment that we need to develop doing Giriya Hozari. It should not happen that we say that word in our Jamaat Khana prayers, tasbih, but we do not know the meaning of Giriya Hozari. We don't act upon Giriya Hozari. So I thought this is one of the most important topics because we all are, I can see from your questions, how much thirst we have for spiritual progress, how much thirst we have for Nurani Didar, for knowledge. We cannot skip or ignore the very fundamental step which is there to reach that destination. So that's where I thought it was important to talk about Giriya Hozari, and it is the Giriya Hozari which helps us purify our heart, helps us concentrate on ibadat, and also prepares our heart for love, ibadat, and ilm. So I think I've taken a lot of time. I would like to stop here. And if the host of the program may suggest what is next